Okay, we are live. Hi, everyone, and welcome again to one of the night sky tours from the Mayborn Science Theater and Hobby Memorial Library. I'm Cindy Oser, and I have with me today CTC Astronomer Warren Hart, and he's going to be going over the constellations that we're going to be seeing in the November sky. So, Warren, oh,
Yes.
and if you want to follow along, we're going to be putting the Astronomy and Mayborn Science Theater LibGuide in the comments, and then that way you can go ahead and follow along with us. Okay, now, sir, take it away.
All right. Good. Well, thank you all for being with us this afternoon, since we're into the afternoon at noon. And we're going to go through the main constellations that this is the month that's the best time to view them. And so, and without any further ado, if Cindy, if will, let's bring up the calendar that we can look at and let everyone see where we're talking about. There's our LibGuide page, and the calendar will be coming here in just a quick minute. There we go. And November. There we go. Very good. Okay. Now, as you would look on here, you will see, and I'm going to see if we can go to full screen view. Okay. Now, if you notice the end of October over here on the first row, of course, you have Halloween, and the sun there is going to be entering the constellation called Libra or Libra, depending on how you want to pronounce it. And I've included on that, calling it an ecliptical constellation. Now, I will explain what that means in a little bit when we bring up the maps of the constellations here for November. And the moon is in, that you can see in during the day now, it is in its what is called its waning crescent phase, which means it's going to go later and later in the day, and eventually it will start over its orbit around the Earth, as we reference with the beginning as a new moon, and we'll indicate that in a little bit. But well, let's take a look. Our first constellation is on Tuesday, the 2nd of November, and it is called Hydrus, the water snake. Now, there are two water snakes. This one is the male water snake, and Hydra, Hydra, is the female. And anyway, here, and notice I put on this for all the constellations, the best time to view is after sunset, pardon me, right at sunset, and throughout the night you have the opportunity then for you to watch and look at the constellation, of course, up until the next day, like on the morning of the 3rd at sunrise on Wednesday the 3rd. Now, there's another thing called the equation of time, and that is in relation to the actual travel of the sun in its point in the sky, and its difference in time with the calculation for the sky of the sun as opposed to what you wear. Well, we used to wear on our wrist with our watches, but now in our phone. and the difference there. And so the sun is going to be 16.5 minutes early than noon for us here. But anyway, we'll go on. And notice on Thursday the 4th, well, let's look at Hydra, excuse me. I was about to skip through that. So here's the page. Each constellation has a map and on here, and here it is. And I've included on this, because of the location of Hydrus is so far to the south, you'll see that our planetarium's southern horizon is that brown line there, that dashed line in the top, very top portion of the area in the sky, which is the white portion of the map that's related to Hydrus. And from this, what this means is everything below that line is not visible here at the planetarium. So you are not going to be able to see any of these stars here in Hydrus unless you decide to go way to the south, and then you would be able to find them and look at them. But anyway, the second page, let's just scroll to the second page there, Cindy. And there it is. If you were at a different location and you have a different southern horizon, and we'll go on down to the third page. Every constellation has at least that first page, and then this for here, the third page, and it lists all of the stars that I had on those first two pages, the numbers, that's what they refer to. There's the name of the stars, and then the next two things, the little letter A, and then you go over, it looks like a weird water cup or something, but that's the Greek letter delta. And those two with the information there is the address of the center point of Hydrus, the constellation in the sky. And that's there primarily for a person who would have a telescope that you can direct it to a specific location in the sky, its address, and then you will have all of the constellation area visible for you. The magnitude or the brightness of the constellations, all of them are listed. And you notice here that this one star, and look over at number 1, Beta Hydrae, is the brightest star in Hydrus there, and that's its brightness, its magnitude. It's 24.3 light years away, and so 24.3 would mean in 1997 that the light from Hydrus left, traveled through space at the speed of light, and finally 24.3 years later, and tonight, if you were able to see it, then those photons that have been traveling from the sun, which is Beta Hydrae, every star is a sun, would reach your eye. And it's 1.93 times larger than our sun. So you would go down through, you would see all their different pieces of information about them. And then what I do also include on all constellations are the bordering constellations. And this comes important, and I'll explain that when we get to the next one, another one that we can see here in the sky. There's also some interesting information. And then the last part, to view all of Constellation Hydrus, you have to be at or between those two latitudes. And you notice that we don't get up as high as is needed or as low as needed to see any part of Hydrus. So let's go on. And our next point there is in here is on Thursday the 4th, and we have the new moon, as I was mentioning about. Now, as soon as we have the new moon, which is a precise time and a precise position of the moon, exactly in line between Earth, the moon, and then the sun, that is the time and the place of what it would call a new moon. And then it begins a phase. Now, the phase will last from now, the new moon, to the next point for the moon, which will be the first quarter moon. And now it is going to start. We would not be able to see the new moon and until a few days later, as it begins in the late evening, begins to get like a little bitty thin crescent in the sky. And that's what happens as it begins to grow, as we would say, or in the old English term, it waxes. And that's what's meaning with growing. And it keeps getting larger. More of the surface of the moon is becoming visible to us and reflecting the sun's rays that they strike on the moon. Then we get the reflection from that over here. And then also at 7 p.m. that night, planet Uranus, which is the last planet you can see with the naked eye, is at what is called opposition, which means we would have in line first the sun, then coming out from the sun would be Earth, and then behind us in the dark will be Uranus. And that's a good night to see it. Now you have to have, and it's an ideal date for it, a new moon. So there is no moon at night right now. And we would have then the excellent night to observe it. And what it's going to look like is a very dim star. So it's very hard to find, but if you find it, you have a great achievement of being able to do that. Now, our next thing on Friday the 5th is we have also, as our moon orbits the Earth, it is a full circle, but it is an elliptical circle. And so there's a time, and here it is on this one orbit here, that the moon is going to be closest to Earth, and that is called its perigee. And the way I remember that is I think of the word perilous. So the moon is perilously close to Earth. Now, it's not going to hit us, but it's perilously close to Earth, and that's what the perigee means. And so my question to you, if you want to send it to us, an answer, is the moon going to be larger or smaller looking in the sky? Which is it going to be, larger or smaller to us in the sky because of it being on Friday the 5th, a perigee moon? Now, the next thing, Saturday, is something all of us may need to do if you have, like we have, a grandfather clock in the house and also some other electronic clocks. And so I always, the night before the time change, I remind myself to go around the house and change all the clocks. And so this time we are going to fall back. We will subtract an hour. So in essence, if at 10 o'clock, if you did it, you would subtract back and it would be 9 o'clock. Now your head, because look over at Sunday. Sunday, the time change for the fall is on the first Sunday of November at 2 in the morning. Now you don't have to wait till 2 in the morning to change it. And if you want, and in fact, I stayed up one time and I watched on my iPhone and I watched the time, and at 2 o'clock, dink, it changed back. So it did it automatically. But for manual clocks or the clocks not synchronized with GPS or anything else, then you have to do them yourself. Well, our next constellation is Aries the Ram. So let's take a look and see what that one looks like. Here is its drawing here. Now, also, it is an ecliptical constellation, like I mentioned earlier for you. And why? Look on the page here. See the blue line that says ecliptic? What is the ecliptic? Now, let me ask you this, and here's another question, and you can send an answer. What astronomical term, what event in the sky can you think of that might include eclipse or something? So this is ecliptic. And so you notice it goes across the area for Aries, and that's why I call this an ecliptical constellation. There it is, very basic. And we can go and scroll down to, and it would be page 2 here, Cindy, since there's no horizon problem there. There are the numbers of the stars, all 10 of them. And there's 10 things that I include about those stars. It's north, south, east, west. Which star of those is which one? Also, which one's the brightest? Which one's the dimmest? Which one's the closest? Which one's the farthest? Which one's the largest? And which one's the smallest? And that is of these 10 constellations there. And you can see that. And for Aries, we have those there. There is also listed what is called an asterism. An asterism, all that means is some people or somebody decided to draw a line in the sky between some stars, at least 2, but maybe more, and call that something. So here we would have in Aries an asterism by finding out what the northern fly, the insect, of what that would look like in the sky, and that's all that means. It does not mean, and what it does not say, is that there is a constellation named the Northern Fly. Think of this. Most of you, I'm sure, are familiar with something we call the Big Dipper. That is an asterism. It is a part of the Big Bear constellation in the sky, but it is not called the Big Dipper. The constellation is called the Big Bear, Ursa Major. So we do that. Now, here's the boarding constellation. So Cindy, if you'll scroll back up to the main page, and real quickly here, I'll show what that means. You see around the constellation, the Aries that's in the white area, I've listed the names of the constellations that border on Aries: Perseus, Triangulum, Pisces, Cetus, and Taurus. They're in there so that if you are wanting to learn a larger part of the sky, then if you find Aries, then you could look and you say, oh, Perseus would be up to the top of it, and Triangulum to the northeast, Pisces to the east, Cetus to the south, and Taurus to the west. And so you would begin looking for them and find them, and you start learning the sky. And I encourage people to say, take the bordering constellations and at any point go around it clockwise or counterclockwise if you desire, but go around it and in that direction, and you'll begin expanding the area of the sky you will become familiar with. Okay, Let's go on then back to the calendar, and we will see that we have now gone on through, and our next one is on the 10th, and that is Fornax the Furnace. All right, let's take a look at that page. And there we are. There's Fornax. Now, there's no other name for it. It's not ecliptical and it's not equatorial. And we'll find out about equatorial later on. But here is Fornax for it. And you see there are the stars. And I number the stars when you look at it from the far right. Which one is the furthest to the right? And that would be star number 1. And then with their addresses where they are, I go from the right to the left. Why do I do that? Well, when you would notice on the left-hand side, and it's written vertically, but you see it says eastern horizon, eastern horizon. If you had this piece of paper with you, and you went out and you turned to the east to look, to orient that page for you, you would turn, and eastern horizon would then be at the bottom of your page, and that would be the horizon, and you would then start watching, and which star is going to come up first? Well, it's number 1. It rises first in the eastern sky, then number 2, number 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way finally to, in this case, number 11. So that's the purpose of what I is indicating, and also why I number them that way, because that's the sequence you would find them. And if it's after the sunrise or the rising of the constellation Fornax, it's later, and it should be south of you. You see at the bottom of the page right there, there's the southern horizon. And then the northern horizon is at the top, and the western horizon is on the right. So whatever direction you are looking, and this is for all the constellations, you would reorient that page to make that horizon that you're looking at the bottom of your page. Now there's something else. We got Huduf and Ixoduf, whatever those are. Notice the green over there on the left, HUDF and XDF. What in the world does that mean? Well, let's go to page 2, and it's going to explain. And there it is in that great big paragraph on interesting information. And the first one, the green area, the HUDF is the Hubble Ultra Deep Field. There's history on that. If you'll notice there, from the Hubble Space Telescope, the director has every year he has access of certain amount of time that he can say, I want the Hubble telescope pointed at a certain point in the sky. And so he chose this, the director, back in 2003 and 4. He had them turn the Hubble telescope to a specific point, and you notice they held it there for those 11 days. 7 days, excuse me, 7, 8 days. And they were taking pictures throughout that time of many different pictures there with the cameras that are on the Hubble Space Telescope. The reason this point was chosen was none of our telescopes on Earth could find anything in that point, that little small area in the sky. As far as we knew, up until September the 24th there and January, there was nothing there. It was a blank. But they took all those pictures, or what they were taking a picture of that point, and we had no idea if anything was going to be there. Well, finally, it was time to see what was there. And Cindy, if you will then give us our next picture. This is it. The Hubble Ultra Deep Field, and we call it a time tunnel into history. Everything you see there is a galaxy. Every little dot is a galaxy. We are looking outside our Milky Way, and all we see are the composite of all of those pictures for those 8 days and nights, and everything there is a galaxy. That's the first time we ever were able to see these. Now, if you scroll back up to the page, the top of the page there, notice as far as we were able to see, if you want to call that, was 13 billion light years. So all of those objects there in 13 billion light years, these are the ones we got to see. Now, I didn't include, but I have a picture. If you would take out of your pocket a dime, a Roosevelt dime, turn it over until you see President Roosevelt on the side. That's there you have there. Look, and on his face, you'll see engraved there, there's his eyeball is there. Now take that dime and hold it at arm's length and look at that eyeball and hold it up in the sky, and that's the size of this area in the sky, that eyeball. That's it. And so all we were able to see, and this is not measured in degrees nor in minutes, but in what are called seconds. And we call this arc seconds, you know, as you measure an angle, an angular width, and all is, in this case, 1 second, a 3600th of 1 degree. Now, we go scroll up one more, go down, no, the other direction. Go back to the first page again. Cindy, yeah, keep her going all the way to the first page of, just get to Fornax. And you're going to see there, it's something, now right there where you have, there's the XDF. Now scroll down to page 2, and here's something about also the same place we looked at, and it's called the Hubble Extreme Deep Field. And in this case, it's a little bit larger, 2.3 arc minutes by 2.3. It's inside the Hubble Deep Field, and they exposed for 22.5 days, 2 million seconds. And we'll see now you scroll down, if you will, to the last picture, to number 4, the 4th one. And here we go, Cindy. Good, there it is. Here's the extreme deep field. Notice, remember, on the ultra deep field, we had 13 billion light years. Now we had 13.2 billion light years. We picked up 200 million more light years distance that we are able to see, and everything there is a galaxy. Now, what there, and the colors there have been added because of what we understand the main gas and the other things that are affecting from those stars. Everything there is a star, is a galaxy of stars. And we don't have the technology yet on normal occasions to pick out a single star in other galaxies. But time is going on, and someday we'll have the technology we can do that. But that's very interesting. Now, the problem is, or if you want, none of us can see that. We would have to have Hubble telescope look at it for us for another 20 days and take pictures of it. But you can't point your eyes, your binoculars, or your telescope to that point in the sky. You can, but you're not going to see anything because it is so far away, and it takes that amount of time to get a photo image of that very, very, very faint image of those galaxies. And I thought that was very interesting, even though we can't see it. All right, let's go back to the calendar, Cindy. And let's see what we have. There's Fornax. Then the next day, there's Veterans Armistice Day. And notice, if you will, that just above the 11th, look at the 4th, and there was a new moon. And 7 days later, almost, we look down on the 11th, and we're now at a first quarter moon. And again, a first quarter moon is a precise time at 6:45, and the moon now is not in front of us, in between us and the sun. It's now off, if you will, if we were facing the sun, it's off to our left shoulder. And now notice on the 4th, it was a waxing crescent phase. It began to grow more and more of the moon. We could see the surface. And now it continues its growing. It's going to waxing gibbous phase. And gibbous is a Latin term that means hump, H-U-M-P. Think of the hump on a camel. And that's where the word comes from. And so it's going to continue waxing gibbous until we come to the next phase of it, and we'll see that in a little bit. Now we get on the last row of the first page, and planet Jupiter is what is called an eastern quadrature, 90 degrees from the sun, and it's on the east side of us. And so that evening, you will be able to get a pretty good picture of the Jupiter, the bright planet there in the night sky, and you'll be able to identify it there. Let's go on to our next constellation on the 18th, and that's Horologium, the pendulum clock. And let's go there, and there's Horologium. And notice again, it's if you will, that is down low in the sky, and we can see everything at the top on down, and the bottom 3 stars we are unable to see because that again is below our horizon. And there is Horologium. Remember me telling you about the address for all of that? There's the central viewing point for the constellation. And if you'll scroll down to the bottom of this page, Cindy, right there. Oh, no, back up, right there. Central viewing point of the constellation, and that is its address. And that's what that green X, if you will, in the sky, what that means. So if you pointed the telescope at those 2 coordinates, you would be in the central part of the constellation. And we can scroll on down, and here it is again, because for those others people, and then page 3, here's that info, and quite the same. The numbers, the indications of them, and the bordering constellations, and you keep adding and getting able to learn more and more of the sky. Well, let's go back to the calendar. And on the calendar, we're still on the 3rd row there, the first page, constellation there. Now, also, there is going to be a partial lunar eclipse that next day, and I put the information here on Thursday the 18th because I didn't have enough room to put it on what it is on 19th. And here's the listing of that partial lunar eclipse. And here's what that means. At 1:02 in the morning is P1, and that stands for the penumbra contact. Penumbra, a shadow in the sky, has two separate, if you will, parts of it. The very intense dark part is when you would look in the night sky and the sun has no influence on what you can see. You say, no, wait a minute, Warren, the sun's on the other side of the earth. We're here at night. Yes, but the sun still is giving out its radiation, its light, and it will affect our atmosphere and the atmosphere that's above us and below us. And it will, depending on our different things, that uh, that will make whatever is in that glow area of the shadow from us, that it will not be totally dark there. So that's what that means. Here's the first contact of the moon into what's called the penumbra. At 2:18 or 2:19, excuse me, is the umbra, which means the dark portion of the shadow. And the shadow we're looking in through is Earth's shadow. And so our shadow is the one that has the two different parts of the shadow there. If you were close enough to Earth, then you would be in the umbra contact. Further out you would go, then you would begin to pick up the radiation glowing of our atmosphere, and that means you would be in the penumbra and get farther out, and then you're outside of our shadow, and then you would have the sun visible around that you could see. And we continue at 2:57 in the morning will be the full moon. Aha. So we've gone from new moon, first quarter. Now we are at full moon, and it begins its waning gibbous phase. Notice up on, and if you scroll that up just a little bit, Cindy, to get the second row of it there. Good. Notice that on the 11th, first quarter moon was a waxing gibbous, and then also up at the new moon was a waxing crescent. Well, now, since it's at the full moon, it's going to now start waning, losing the area of the moon that we would see. So it's going to be waning gibbous, and that's what happens. At 4:04 a.m. on the partial lunar eclipse is the greatest partial point of the greatest partial lunar eclipse. And then as we leave, the moon leaves our shadow, it goes out of our last umbra contact, and that's there is U4 there. And I failed to mention up at 2:19 was ultra 1 and then ultra 4. And then the last at 7:04 is the last of the penumbral contact there. You see, the lunar eclipse takes hours from beginning to end. A solar eclipse will take a few minutes. Now, let's look at our next constellation on the 20th, and that is Perseus, Andromeda's hero. And let's take a look there. There's Perseus. Okay. And if you'll notice, the ecliptic is down below there, so but it doesn't have any contact with the constellation area for Perseus. So It's not an ecliptical constellation. And there he is, and there's information there. You would scroll down to the second page of it, and there would be all of its information, all the stars. And you notice I have at the beginning, there's an A and a B. And if you go down, you will see a small letter A. What is that? Scroll back up to the first page, Cindy, and I'll show them what that means. Notice way up in the upper right-hand corner, there is a yellow circled area, A, and that is indicating a globular cluster of stars in the sky. And there's B, a similar one, another globular cluster of stars in the sky. And the astronomers are very creative in their descriptions. It's a glob of stars. So that's what you have here. And then up there above the just outside the area of Perseus, you see MSRP1, and that's the center point for and let's scroll down on the second page there, Cindy. Right, go right there, way down in between 15 and 16. There it is, the meteor shower called Epsilon Perseids, and that point is the meteor shower's radiant point. It's the point where it seems the comets, the meteors, not the comets, the meteors seem to be coming out of, and that's what that means. And we have there. Okay, and the rest of it is we're familiar with. So we'll go on in the calendar back to our page. And on the 20th, we had the constellation. And on the 20th also, I'll be doing the December night sky tours in the planetarium. And Cindy, if you want to mention when we will do the next WebEx for the December constellations. Now you're muted.
We will, thanks, Warren. We will have our next one on Tuesday, November 30th. We try to coincide with what goes on at the planetarium and get it pretty close. So that'll be our next date.
Okay.
You can actually find it on our events page.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Cindy. Well, let's go back to the calendar and we'll finish up that first. And then remember we had perigee. And so the opposite of perigee for the moon is the apogee. When it is the moon in the orbit, it will be the farthest from the Earth. And again, the question, will the moon then be the largest or the smallest of them looking in the sky for this orbit? Now let's go on down to the second page and we'll begin to go and finish up here. Now, the sun also is traveling along, and of course the sun is on the elliptical line pertains to the sun, and it's going to enter from Libra, and it's going to enter the Scorpion, Scorpius the Scorpion. Then we have Thanksgiving. And then on the 27th, on Saturday, we go from the full moon. Then we have our third or our last quarter moon. It leaves its waning gibbous phase. It continues in its waning crescent phase. And its next time is going to be a new moon. And we have another constellation, our next to last, Reticulum, the telescope's reticle. So here we go, and here it is. And you would see there it is. And again, unfortunately, just like Hydrus, our first one, All of it is below our horizon, and we're not going to see it. So we'll just scroll on down, if you will, to the last page, and there's the information on it. And the same thing. Notice it's just for fun, interesting information. Its original name was Reticulum rhomboidalis, or the rhomboidal reticle. That's a mouthful. Okay, Cindy, let's go back to the calendar. And we'll go here on the last line, the last week, and we have the equatorial constellation Eridanus. So let me ask you this before we go to look at the constellation. It doesn't say ecliptical, it says equatorial. So what do you think is going to be concerning a constellation of Eridanus, the river? Let's take a look. Well, let's see. Anybody happen to see the equator going here in our constellation? Well, yes. Look at the very, very top of it, just to the left of the little thing that says north, the border of it. Do you see there, just to the right of the line, that's the 4th hour, and just a little to the left of it, there's just a fraction of it there on and north of the equator. So this thing, just by its toenail or whatever, fingernail, it is also in the northern hemisphere, but predominantly in the southern hemisphere. Now, the outstanding thing on this, you get to see everything here, and you get to see the entire river as it goes. And it goes all the way down, and by coincidence, if you will, or design, the number 1 star is down at the very bottom. You're going to get to see it. It's going to be very, very close to the southern horizon. It's going to be very bright. In fact, because this star, Achernar, happens to be the brightest star of the 7 constellations for November. It's brighter than all of the other constellations. And it's a good navigation point. I used it when I was in the Air Force, and it's very helpful, but it's just above our southern horizon. So if you've got trees or a building in between you and the horizon, you need to get somewhere where you can see the horizon without any trees or buildings or objects in front of you, and then you will have a better chance to see Eridanus. And it's good to see it in the dark sky, because you'll start, and if you'll notice at the upper left of the diagram there is the constellation Orion. And Orion is facing us, so that bordering side of Orion to Eridanus is his left side. So down along just below his knee of his his left leg, that dark circle there in Orion is Rigel, and that's his left foot. So there is, if you will, the point there for the river, and the headway, or the head of the beginning of the river is there down at number 33. It comes up, curves, and goes, and then there's the big bend of the river, and it then begins meandering down all the way down to Achernar. Outstanding constellation to look at. Okay, let's go to the calendar. And we have our last thing for November. The sun is going to leave The Scorpion, see right above there, just on the 23rd, the sun entered the Scorpion, Scorpius, and it's not in it very long. It's just going across a corner of the Scorpion, and then it goes into the constellation called Ophiuchus, who is called the Serpent Wrestler. And so if we go to Ophiuchus here, you will see, and there he is, and good. So Ophiuchus is the one that has the serpent that he is wrestling. And a month ago, we looked there on the right-hand side of the diagram, serpens caput, which means head of the serpent. And that's part of him. And then next month, we would see then serpens cauda, and that would be the tail of the serpent. This actually, the best time of the year for this is May for serpens caput, and June, if you will, in serpens cauda. So there you have. Now you can scroll down to the page, and there is Ophiuchus, a lot of stars in there, and you can see that information. We go back up and we notice that on here, go ahead, he is no, look at here at Ophiuchus. Notice the two things. He is an ecliptical constellation, see the blue line? And he is also an equatorial constellation, both. And so he straddles the equator, and the ecliptic goes through along his feet down there. Well, that is November. Let's go back to the calendar and give you a real quick saying, here's what's going to happen in December. And the first thing there, Cindy, I believe you'd like to talk about what's happening there on the 1st. You're muted again.
Sorry.
Sign language would work.
Yes. No, we have the lib guide that we share with the Mayborn Science Theater, and it gives you information on, our constellations, what's going on, the shows, what's going on at the theater. And we also, this is where you can find your night sky calendars that Warren goes through our constellations. We have that. We also have the databases, books, astronomy films, internet resources, citations, and every month, oh, and our past night sky tours are also on here. But every month, Warren puts together fun activities, and he's got crypto quote puzzles, drop quote puzzles, and Sudoku puzzles. And the library has kind of added a little bit of an incentive this time. If you are able to, in the November puzzles, and it'll be November and December, if you are able to do the puzzle and then upload a picture of your answer in there, then the person who gets them correct, we will have a drawing, and whoever's name we pick, you will get a prize and a t-shirt. So we've kind of added some incentive to do these puzzles that Warren puts in here every month. We will be putting the answers to October 21st. So it won't be the October one or the previous ones, because those are already going to have answers. It's going to be for the November and the December ones.
Okay.
So yeah, go ahead and try them out.
Yeah. And also all three of the puzzles, the answer is, and what's in there is astronomy related.
Okay, yes. Yes, and check out the other months to see how those were done so that you can get an idea of how Warren's brain works. Right, Warren?
Something like that. Yes, indeed.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, thank you again so much. Do we Alyssa, do we have any questions? I don't see Alyssa is actually going to text me the questions. I don't see any questions, but I wanted to answer one of your questions. If the moon is closer, then it's brighter, correct?
Correct.
And what was your other question? I should have written it down. I was
Well,
getting those tips.
it'll be brighter. It will be larger because it's closer.
Oh, oh, yeah, yeah. Well, and I also have one other comment. When we looked at the Hubble,
Mhm.
and you said how far away they were.
Yes.
It's like, wow, talk about the total feeling of insignificance.
Yeah. There you go.
I
Well,
mean, that's an
it's the thought.
understatement.
For sure. There's talk that maybe we'll be able to look out maybe up to around 15 billion light years. That's going to take uh, better technology and all. And I need to look it up again. There is a point, I believe it's at 15 point something, that is believed to be that's the limit that we will ever see because that is the age, what we consider the age of the universe, and there's undoubtedly more beyond, but that light will never reach us in
Do
our
you,
life, in the lifetime of the universe so far.
so do you think we'll get to a point where we'll just hit a wall?
Uh, yeah, but I don't worry about it right offhand.
So we're not going to get to the edge anytime soon.
No, 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 no.
Wow. Wow. Well, you have such amazing, fascinating facts every month for us. We truly love, going ahead and doing these night sky tours with you. And we will be back again, was it the end of this month to do December's, and then no, that's not right. Yes, that's right.
That's right.
The end of
That's right.
this month to December, and then we won't have one in the month of December. We will have January's at the very beginning of January, like January 5th.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have it
By,
for every
Go
month.
ahead.
Go ahead.
By the way, for those considering, December is the outstanding month of the year. There are 10 constellations that are listed, so I'll go through them a lot quicker. But this is the outstanding sky to look at. We're getting into it here in middle fall, all the way to early spring, but you're going to have like Orion and Taurus the Bull, Orion the Hunter, and many others there. And we have time, and I think I'll tell you the story. Or if not, come to the planetarium and tell you the story of 10, 10 or 8 constellations that are involved in the story. So to give you the ability to learn a large part of the sky.
Okay, awesome. Very awesome. So, guys, reminder, go on over to the planetarium. Warren's got some amazing in-person events as well. So we have Warren all over the internet and at the planetarium. So, well, so thank you again for visiting with us. We love having you. And oh, for everyone, if you will notice that on the flyer that we showed, we're going to be doing all of our night sky tours on the Hobby Memorial Library website. We're going to be moving our library events over to the Hobby Memorial Library, not website, but Facebook. And I want to remind you guys, we're not quite moved all over yet, because Monday we have the soil testing virtual event, and then on Wednesday we have the how to start a business event with the business department, and those both will be on CTC's Facebook. So we are gradually moving over to the library Facebook, and we'll let you know when in our social media, the library's Facebook and Twitter. So, all right. So there you go, sir. We are done for today, and I'm excited to go out tonight. It should be a clear sky to go see what's up there. I'm always
Okay,
looking in the
there we go.
sky at night.
Very good.
So,
All
all
right.
right.
See you, all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. And Alyssa, if you will take us out, but don't go anywhere. Warren, have a great day.